Welcome to Grew with Portia, the podcast that uncovers the hidden treasures within grief. I'm your host, Portia the producer, and I'm inviting you to join me on a transformative journey where we will exchange laughter, of course the best medicine of them all, reflect on cherished memories. Remember that time that the little boy grabbed my hand instead of his mother's at the amusement park? Yikes. And of course, discover gratitude while navigating one of life's hardest challenges, loss. So get ready to grow with me, Portia the producer. Let's dive in. Listeners, welcome back to Grew with Portia. I'm your host and executive producer, Portia the producer. And as always, I am excited to always bring back returning guests. So today we are joined by a soul-driven individual who is also no stranger to grief. She is on a mission to not only empower women to cultivate their personal style from within, but to also use fashion as a medium to express their complete authenticity. So it is my honor to introduce your personal stylist and founder of Soul to Style, Missy Baker. How you doing today, Missy?
Oh, I'm doing so well. Thank you for those beautiful words. I always love to hear you speak into that. It's so fun.
Well, first and foremost, I have to express gratitude, Missy, for you saying yes to be my first guest of me taking a hiatus from recording interviews and also being the first video, right? People are always getting on me like, Portia, well, how come we don't see you? You encourage everybody to see them, but we don't see you, right? So now I guess you can say, practicing what I preach. I'm finally in the right church, in the right pew this time, right? So, Missy, as always, you know I got to start off with gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
So grateful today for the support system that I have created for myself, because I think we're going to get into a little bit of this, but it's been a tough couple of months entrepreneurship wise, and not all bad, but so happy to have such a great support system from friends, coaches, like people in my network. And so just been really reflecting on that, because that's what's gotten me through in these last couple of months. So yeah.
Missy, I can definitely relate to that. And I agree, because it's amazing to have that, right? Because your support network keeps you, number one, encouraged when you're feeling discouraged from seeing all the things, right? I'm somebody who overthinks. And one of the last episodes I did on Group Portia was on converting my overwhelming thoughts into an opportunity, right? And when we see people who are in our same industry, who are, I guess, in a sense, climbing the ladder quicker than us, we're kind of like, well, hey, what the heck? How come, the screwdriver is not working in the same door anymore when it's the same door that I haven't changed? So I definitely can agree, like having that support network is empowering, it's embracing, and it also really helps you on not just the tough days, but even on the good days, because you got that little cheerleader, like that little voice, like, go, Missy, go, Portia, go. Oh, Missy, I want to talk about our last conversation, which for our audience who is tuning in, me and Missy's last conversation was in 2022 in November. And so, Missy, I had an opportunity to listen to our last conversation. And I remember one of the things that you talked about was that grieving the loss of your identity from making the transition from the corporate engineer who you were to now being this purpose-driven entrepreneur. So, Missy, for our audience who is tuning in, how are you embracing the grief from the transitions that come with entrepreneurship, right? Because as you mentioned, you lose support networks, you embark on new ones. Some of us start new social media channels, or even just a missed opportunity, right? When we felt like it was the divinely purpose tailored time for us to make this big leap, and then it just went downhill, like so Missy, elaborate on that. So how are you embracing the grief from the transitions that come with entrepreneurship?
Oh, I mean, there's so many of them, and I think once you've gone through something that's a little bit of a bigger, quote unquote, "bigger grief," it opens your eyes up to allowing that grief to come. Because I think one of the biggest things that trips us up when we start to talk about grief in any capacity is we don't wanna see it. We don't wanna see losing a friend or somebody in your support network or that changing. We don't wanna see that as grief. We don't wanna see the grief in making these transitions in our lives, missed opportunities, canceled events, uh, that we just wanna see those as, like, normal pieces of life almost, and it's kind of like you just suck it up and move on, but we miss such an opportunity to really grow when we try to kinda, like, gloss over those grief things, and I mean, all of those examples that you've mentioned, I mean, I could probably think of something at least one thing for all of those things, but I mean, most recently, and I haven't even shared this publicly, but most recently, I had an event, if you already follow me on Instagram, you may have heard about it. I was gonna do this really cool, like, style tour, and it's still a fabulous idea. Like, I'm like, that idea is still sitting on the shelf, but, like, the time that I picked to do it, I think that was the biggest thing was, like, it was just weird timing for a lot of people, and so I ended up having to pull the plug on it about a week beforehand, and man, that was, like 'cause, like, that was like a baby to me. I was like, "This idea is so amazing. Nobody's doing this. I'm so excited about it." And I mean, you can probably still sense like I guess still get the tinglies about it because I'm like, it's such a fabulous idea. And I know it will come to fruition when it is supposed to. But I also learned a lot, a lot from doing that. And that was from allowing myself to be like honest with myself and working through it with my coach as well about the grief and why I was having so much grief with it. It actually, when I was able to untangle the grief part, I realized I wasn't even really grieving the business part of it. I was grieving some of the personal things that I'd kind of like intertwined with my business. And when I started to pull on those threads and allowed myself to feel that grief and allowed myself to not feel shame for having the grief, it unraveled a ton of lessons for me that I'm now working through as far as like honestly boundaries that I have between personal stuff, friendships, and business, all because like something on the surface that like really kind of like was sucky because I'm like, man, this was such a great idea. And processing that grief through it and allowing myself to feel all those things just opened up this whole new platform of things that I think is some stuff that's probably been keeping me stuck for a long time because I hadn't really faced this idea of boundaries and such. So, I think when we are willing to look at the grief head on and recognize that we're allowed to have grief in those different things, whether it's losing somebody in your support network. And really, a lot of times when you're losing somebody in your support network that I've found is because your growth trajectory has like been it's going on a different path. That doesn't mean that anybody's like better than anybody else or doing things better. It's just it's a different rate of growth. And I'm kind of getting the like scientific like term thinkings, but like you're just on this different like rate. And it's like, okay, we traveled together for a little while and you're gonna go here and I'm gonna go here, and like that's okay. But we don't realize that until we allow ourselves to have that grief. And man, you can learn so much when you actually don't try to like shove it down or brush it off and be like, no, I'm fine. I'm just resilient. That's bypassing it. So you gotta face it head on.
100%. And Missy, let me backtrack a minute because one of the things that you mentioned was when we're in this season of grief, we don't want to see it. right? You didn't want to see the reality that this grandiose idea, which is fantastic. I can still see the passion in your eyes, and I'm passionate about it. Like, man, I want to do this, right? The big idea that obviously had some other steps that needed to be implemented in order for it to really take its launch, right? So, really, Missy, this is why I love having these conversations about grief, because what we tend to overlook or try to oversee is the hidden gift within grief,
Mhm.
right? Look at
Mhm.
all the lessons that you took away from this one event crumpling through, right? You were able to, number one, learn to set clear boundaries between personal, business, networking, all those things, right? And then probably some other personal things around fear, around shame, around different areas of your life where you're like, man, where did this get uprooted from? But that is the beauty that is hidden within grief. It's kind of like what I call the mess to miracle
Yeah.
algorithm. You got to get through the mess in order to get to the miracle. And so, Missy, I got to ask this first and foremost for our audience who are tuning into this conversation. If they want to connect with you and learn more about your work and your services, is there a social media handle or website you can share with us today?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So easiest two ways to find me. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at soul.to.style. That's on Instagram. If you want to find me on my website, there's a place for you to reach out and email me on there and check out all of the stuff, which is also newly redone. It is soul dash to to dash style.com. So just a little bit difference in the punctuation there, but same words, same spelling. That's where people can find me. And I love having conversations with people either via email or in the DMs on Instagram. Just about what they're going through and that perspective shift of grief. And then of course, as we get into clothes, like you can always talk to me about clothes. I'm always down to talk about all the style things. It's my favorite thing.
Oh, of course. And, for our listeners, definitely you can connect with Missy on all social media platforms and follow her work, her initiatives. And hey, I'm sure that when that style buzz comes back, you guys can, no pun intended, hop aboard and get your outfits of your dreams. So, Missy, I got to talk about this because, little digression, I had the opportunity to experience what your clients receive, right? And so one of the services for our audience who is tuning in that Missy offers is what's called a closet cleanse. And I'm gonna be honest, even for me, when I did my closet cleanse, I found myself in this boat of, oh, this gonna be easy peasy. Just take a big gigantic garbage bag and just do like Nike, just do it, dunk it all away, pull a couple Michael Jordans, and then we're all good, right? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And let's be honest, for other people, right, Missy, it's a process when you're going through your closet, looking at different outfits from your past, or what I call the just in cases, but they really are just in cases based on somebody else's opinion and not so much of what you deemed as a just in case. And so, Missy, right, there's a level of fear that's present along with grief as people are going through their closet and looking at these keepsakes, right? And so, Missy, walk us through how you support your clients on this journey of letting go, right? Just how your coach was there to support you when you were kind of letting go of some of these limiting beliefs that you had through this process of your bus tour not coming into fruition. So walk us through how you provide that same level of support to your clients as they're letting go of things in their wardrobe.
Oh, it is so true. Like cleaning out your closet, like unless you put some intentionality around it, sure, you can go and clean it out, but then I mean, I used to do this myself. You're gonna have those like, okay, well, maybe I should keep it. Maybe I should keep it. And the key is in that and the thoughts that are going through your head. So there's a few things that I do. Okay, it's a multi-layered approach to doing this. Number one, I start with a vision. Every client that I work with, we start with a vision session that I do. It is very unique to my business. And I've also recently, earlier this year, I guess it's been a few months now, I got my Reiki Master certification. So I layer in both the more like almost like logical, divine masculine, very traditional kind of coaching aspect with this energy work too. So we're melding those two together. But we do a vision session that brings in a little bit of Reiki to just clear out, reset all of the energy. And then I take my clients through this vision. And the entire purpose of that vision is to connect people to their higher self, to maybe a more tangible way to say it is next level self. Like 6 months down the line is usually what I kind of use as a visual. And we visualize what that version of you is going to look like. So think about as you're listening, you can think about this just on the conscious level, even goals that you have for yourself by the end of the year. We're at the halfway point of the year. So it's really easy to say, like, by the end of the year, like, this is where I want to be. Well, how does that version of you start to show up? I can almost guarantee you there is something different about the way that version of you dresses than how you dress now. So that's what we're tapping into, but we're also doing it in a very like subconscious way. So we're allowing some things that maybe not wouldn't come to the forefront of your mind right now. We're allowing those things to come in. That sets the stage. Like sometimes with people, like that is enough that they'll even have started to clear out things before I get there for the actual closet cleanse. Cause they're like, oh, like I just was feeling super inspired. And that's great because you start to have this vision. It gives you much more black and white. Okay, this goes, this stays, this goes, and it helps to clear up some of those like pieces because you have a more firm root in who you are and where you're going. That's the whole idea of creating that vision. That said, then when we get into the closet, it varies, but everybody has some sort of limiting beliefs tied to their clothes. It might be limiting beliefs around weight. Oh my gosh, well, but like this doesn't fit me anymore. But what if I lose the weight and I want to wear this? Or vice versa. This doesn't fit me anymore, but what if I gain weight again and then I need this piece? That's all wrapped up in fear of what's going to happen in the future. And that's kind of putting you in this anxious state. Well, that version of you that we visioned, she's rooted in the present moment. So it's about unraveling why you feel that way. Another one that I hear all the time is, okay, but I spent money on it. It is not uncommon for us to get rid of multiple things that still have tags on them in many women's closets. So if that is you as you are listening, you are not alone. I feel like everybody thinks they're alone in that. And so that brings a whole nother limiting belief around money and kind of almost this like sunk cost fallacy of like, well, I spent money on it. So shouldn't I at least wear it? But if it doesn't feel like you, if it doesn't fit your vision, by you holding on to that, all you're doing is reminding yourself that, oh yeah, I spent money on something that really didn't align with me and I made a bad decision. And you kind of have this like hanging reminder of almost kind of taunting you in a way of being like, la la la, you made this bad decision and now you have to wear me and now you're stuck with me. Well, you get to say no. You get to say no, like that's okay. And rewriting that because you didn't know what you didn't know. Like we all grew up in this very shopaholic central. I mean, I can still go see it on Instagram now of people that are doing these big hauls and trying to encourage you to just buy, 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 buy. Plus, stores are set up to like encourage you to buy stuff you don't, necessarily want all the time. So if you didn't know, you get to forgive yourself. It's a cool place to get to forgive yourself and then say, okay, well, now I know. Now I have an intention. And that's what I teach too, is this like, how do I go about intentionally shopping? That's what that vision is also about, so that I'm not filling my closet back up. But all of those things, the common thread in all of those, whether it's money related, whether it's weight related, is this like almost scarcity fear mindset. And so it's changing those limiting beliefs that we have. And if you don't do the work on the beliefs and at least have the awareness of the beliefs, you'll get yourself in that cycle where you clean out the closet. You probably don't get everything out that you need to get out. And then 2 months later, it's all filled back up again because subconsciously you're going, ooh, I need space in the closet. Now I can go out and shop and just fill it all back up again. And then you don't even realize you're doing it. And then the other piece that we do with that is once we get the closet cleaned, organized, we've got all the bags out of it, I then also go in and do Reiki on spaces. So you can do Reiki not just on people, you can do it on spaces too. So I will go out and then do this cleansing of that energy, because you also like every corner of your house, but your closet particularly, man, you've got a lot of energy in there. And so people have reported after doing that, not only do they feel an ease and a lightness in their closet, but 9 times out of 10, the closet is in the bedroom space too, right? And they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, like I slept amazing last night." I'm like, "Well, yeah, we cleared out a lot of stuck energy that was in the closet space, which is adjacent to where you're sleeping." And so we're working on tangible, conscious level of the limiting beliefs, but those clothes also held those energies. So when we're doing the Reiki energy is also moving through there and kind of disconnecting those energetic ties as well. So yes, you end up with a cleaner closet, but man, the perspective shift, the energy shift, releasing those limiting beliefs, that's really what it's all about. And then the clothes are just the fun part that we get to the vehicle, I think. Yeah, you used a different word at the beginning, but it's basically the vehicle for the change. And I mean, it's fun. It's fun. That makes it a little less daunting than today we're going to work on clearing your limiting beliefs.
Well, and I think it's, no pun intended, a little more layered in a different language, right? I think it's all about shifting perspectives and kind of finding that common thread of it all, right? The common
Mhm.
denominator in this is those limiting beliefs that manifest into different avenues of our lives, right? There's different colored threads. Like you've got obviously red for maybe your fear around money. Maybe there's blue for this fear around, not occupying the space that you want. Maybe there's fear around there's a numerous things that can
Mhm.
transpire from the limiting beliefs that we hold. And so, Missy, I got to ask you this. How often, considering you're the stylist, right? I'm wondering how often, even for you, you have to do kind of a closet cleanser Reiki session on your own. And then and then number two, when you find yourself falling into those limiting beliefs around money, around, oh, I spent a pretty penny on this outfit, but I don't no longer identify with it. How do you navigate that even for you?
Oh, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Sometimes I wish I could like clone myself and have myself talk to me. And that's what I kind of see it as, when I just do it all with myself. Because I would say, to kind of answer the tangible part of that question, I would say like every 3 to 6 months. Like I did one at the beginning of this year where I actually listened to a recording of myself that I made doing the vision session. So I'm like guiding myself through. So that one is where like I almost feel like I clone myself because I watch a video of myself and take myself through the meditation. Because like if I try to do it just in my head, I do it too fast. I like try to like zoom through it. So I have to make myself sit down and listen to myself. Which is so funny. It's so funny to go back and like listen to yourself do stuff because I'm like, wow, I said that. Like, whoa, that's whoa, cool. But anyways, so I will do that and then I will go through and I go through my closet. And the one that I did at the beginning of the year was I didn't get a lot of new stuff. Like I didn't get a lot of new stuff in my vision. So like I went through, there were some things that didn't fit anymore. And there was a few things I'm like, oh, like I haven't worn this, I haven't worn that. And it was kind of a pretty simple one. But I think it was in May, I went through a pretty big, like, look myself in the mirror and gotta be honest with myself. Some of that was related, that came towards the end. Some of that was related to this like tour that I had to cancel, but it was building before that. And that one was a much bigger cleanse. Like I think I took out 4 or 5 bags of clothes from my closet. And I don't have tons of stuff in my closet anymore. If you've ever listened to me before, I used to talk about how I had like 3 of our closets in this house filled with clothes. Now all of my stuff fits into about 2/3 of the closet in our bedroom, and my husband actually has space for his clothes in our bedroom closet too. So I don't have tons, but I got rid of a lot, and then in this space of recreating and retooling my own style. And for me, what I realized this time is I'd kind of almost gotten to a little bit too wide of a variety in my style. And what really came through for me is like, oh, I need to stop trying to almost let everybody see themselves in me because I'd kind of almost gotten into like too far down like the stylist path of like, oh, I need to like let people see themselves in my style. And so then I'd be like this one day and this one day and this one day. And the realization coming through that didn't actually come through me, some of it was from my coach, which was like, gotta be willing to take like listen to the hard words, was like, you're really stylish, but what is your actual style? I don't know. And like when she said that to me and was like, I don't know how I would like describe your style, I went, oh shit, I'm doing something wrong because I need to stand in that authenticity because that's what I like, that's what I'm doing for other people. And I just gotten a little bit too broad with it. And so I'm focusing things back, playing with things. And the process is like it's not a walk in the park, even for me to do it for myself, because it does require you to be open to hearing some things that maybe you don't want to hear, getting rid of some things that you're like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do it. And knowing that you almost like, I feel like this sounds super cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. You choose your hard, right? It's hard to stay stuck in that place. And for me, what that was creating in my life was actually a little bit of a disconnection with who I am and where I'm heading. And then that was showing up in the results in my business. And then it's hard, it's hard to be in that, but it's hard to face like, oh, yeah, I needed to make some changes here. There was tons of tears. May was a month of like tons of tears behind the scenes. I did tons of fun things too, which was also like the cool thing. This is the first time I've gone through that and been able to really feel like I zoomed out and be like, well, like there's a lot of great things that happened. And I was going through this grief, which is like super human and normal. But I think we try to like pinpoint good and bad. And like these are good emotions and these are bad emotions. And when I'm feeling these, I can't be feeling these. And when I'm feeling these, I can't be feeling, the other, like vice versa kind of thing. And I'm like, oh no, like I was going through a period of grief and I still had like May was amazing. My daughter graduated from preschool and we, at the end of May, beginning of June, we had a dance recital. We just did so many fun things as a family and personally. Like I spent time with, friends, I did a lot of really cool things. And I was going through this at the same time. They can coexist. They can coexist, and it's actually this beautiful like view of the human experience when you do that. But both of them are hard. Coming back to that point, both of them are hard. Whether you decide to stay stuck in that, which you're probably not consciously being like, I'm gonna stay stuck, but you're like, I'm gonna be in this comfortable place, comfortable, but that comfortable place isn't comfortable either. It has all these unintended consequences. Or you can say, okay, like I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna cry the tears, I'm gonna feel the hurt feelings, I'm gonna, be allow myself to be mad at my coach for a minute. Cause like I had a week where I was just really, really pissed off. And I actually wasn't allowing myself to feel that. And when I talk to myself in the car sometimes when I'm really trying to process stuff. And I was talking along, and all of a sudden, like this thing, like I could just feel it. It's like, there's this thing that wants to come out. And I was like, okay, let you out. You just say whatever you need to say. And he was like this like vitriol of like, like F this and F that and F her and blah blah blah. And it happened for about 60 seconds. And then I was like, oh, I feel better. Oh, maybe that's what's been like stuck in here. And I allowed myself to say it, but I didn't believe it. Because I'm like, I know I don't feel that way about her or about the situation, but I had to let it out. And it's the same with like the grief, like that all gets tied together. The grief, the anger, the shame, you gotta let it out. You don't have to believe it, but you gotta let it out. So a very long-winded way to tell you that I go through the same stuff that, I'm asking my clients to go through, and it's ever evolving. You're never going to arrive at a place. And I think I'd kind of almost gotten into that feeling, which is where I was like reflecting all of these other things back. I was like, oh, like I've arrived. And like, no, the universe is like, no, we're not there yet. Like, you're not there. You're not arriving. You need to keep evolving. And my hope is to help people not like kind of run into it like a brick wall. Like, I feel like I kind of did in May, and be like, oh, I noticed that this level up is like coming. So like let me help you kind of build the ramp to get there so you don't have to just like ram your head right into the wall. And if that happens too, it's okay. You can work through that too.
Missy, first and foremost, I got to mention that I love the response that you just had, because it made me, what I'm getting is the duality. Grief paints before us the duality if we're open to seeing it, right? Like what you mentioned about how emotions are not good or bad, but we tend to, because of conditioning, we're under the assumption that these emotions, I can't be happy and grieving at the same time, but yes, you can. And that to me is the beauty of the human experience, is that duality. There's no this or, it's this and. Yes, I am under my grief journey, and I'm still moving forward with my life. Painting that picture of choosing your heart.
Mm-hmm.
We can choose to continue to be a prisoner of our grief, or learn how to walk to it, embrace it, and set an action plan to move along with our grief. Because grief doesn't go away. It definitely doesn't go away. It evolves over time. And you kind of hinted on that just a minute ago about evolution of our journey on this human experience.
Mm-hmm.
Missy, I got to say, again, thank you so much for coming on and being the first returning guest of Grew with Portia. We're going to be wrapping up here soon. And Missy, before we conclude, first and foremost, if our listeners, again, want to connect with you and learn more about you, can you share your social media and your website for them to find you?
Yes, of course. Find me on Instagram at soul.2to.style. I hang out there frequently. Or if you prefer, you can find me at my website, soul-2to-style.com. Same spellings for both, just that different punctuation. And you can reach out to me via email on my website, as well as just get a little bit more of a flavor of what I'm all about and what I offer.
Excellent, excellent. Missy, you always know I always got a grand finale, of course, right? So for our listeners, you've left us number one with a vision for not just our closet of the wardrobe we want to embody, but also the vision for our life, right? Number two, working through our limiting beliefs and understanding the multi-layered and threads that tend to congregate together, right?
Mhm.
And then number three, being intentional with every step on this journey, right? Because grief is a process, but it's not permanent. And we can find a new pathway and the hidden gift that's within the grief process. So, for our listeners, Missy, what words of inspiration can you leave with them today?
Mm. The biggest thing that's coming through for me right now to bring this home is in the end, when we talk about feeling grief, feeling anger, feeling all of those things that come along with that, all of those perceived negative emotions. I don't know where this research came from, so I can't say who it's from, but I've heard it multiple times from multiple sources that I think it's only 60 to 90 seconds when you actually let the emotion come through and process what it wants to be. So, like I just described a little bit ago about that anger that came through. As soon as I let it process, it was like, oh, this like weight was lifted. And so, knowing that, even though sometimes might take you a few days, like it did me, like knowing that I think is so helpful in realizing, like, hey, if I just stop avoiding this, I let that come out, it's going to make you feel lighter. And then the second piece of that, which I already hinted on, is you don't have to believe the thoughts that come out of that emotion. You can learn from them. You can understand why they're there. But if you don't let those emotions speak and come out, you are pushing them into your body. You're going to create so many more issues for yourself than if you just allow it to come out. And I think knowing, being armed with the information of, oh, if I just let this come out, it's not going to last that long, removes this idea that if we let it come out, it's just going to be this horrible, awful thing that's just going to ruin our day. It doesn't have to. In fact, it more likely will ruin your day when you keep it all held in versus if you let it out. And so, whether that's anger that you're letting out or if it's crying that you need to let out. I mean, I think I saw you on your Instagram stories the other day ask a question about how you like process grief. And like, man, a good cry is one of the number one ways I started to learn, like, oh, it was okay when I feel that lump in my throat to just let it out. Let it out. And then it doesn't last very long. You let it out and you're like, oh, and you feel that weight lifted. And so if you take away nothing else as a listener of this show today, if you just let those feelings out, it doesn't last long and it's going to make you feel so much lighter. And you don't have to believe those thoughts, but you do have to let them come out. Because if you leave them in, then they're just gonna fester and do stuff that you don't want to create in your life. All of that dis-ease in your body and the way you feel, it's not worth it. Let it out. Let it out.
Let it go and let it out. And Missy, I agree with you. I'm glad that I did that poll on my Instagram story because it really gave me an idea of how people really navigate and let go of the heavy emotions that come with grief. Now, I'm not going to lie. I am somebody who cries. Like when I tell y'all the snot be so thick coming out of my nose, I can literally tow my own car. But I'm going to digress there. Well, everybody, that was your personal stylist and founder of Soul to Style, Missy Baker, who you heard from. And that concludes another episode of Grew with Portia, everybody. Thanks for listening. Peace and hair grease, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Grew with Portia. Remember to subscribe to my channel for the latest episodes. And of course, follow me on social media. You can follow me on Instagram at Portia, the producer. Anyway, guys, until we meet again, peace and hair grease.